Hi guys, Kayla and I are back for knitting part 2, and today we're going to be doing a hat. But first we have to finish up from last week, and we have to go ahead and teach you how to bind off, which means how to get the knitting off your needles without losing your stitches. Because if you just pull this out, then you pull the yarn, all the stitches are going to come out too. Ask me how I know that one. Yeah, they didn't teach me about binding off at the beginning. So we're going to teach you real quick how to bind off, then we're going to go ahead and cast on a hat. Okay? Super. So I'm going to turn it over to Kayla right now, and we're going to switch cameras.
Okay, so we're just knitting along until we get to the point where we feel like we would like to finish. And so what you're going to do is just knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, and then you're going to take the needle, in my case in my left hand, and I'm going to take it to the first stitch that was knit, and I'm going to slide it through from the left side, and I'm going to bring it over the second stitch that was knit so that it just kind of rests over it. And you're just going to keep doing that across. One thing to be careful about is this is another situation where it can get really tight and then the two ends are going to look very different. So find your tension that you would like. You don't want it to be too tight, but if you do it too loose, it'll also just splay out instead of like shrinking in. There are some options for doing a stretchy bind off in cases where you would like it to be stretchy, like at the cuff of a sleeve or something.
That'll come into the next series.
Yeah, so that's something to look forward to consider if you notice that you just have the tendency to bind off really tightly in general. So, yep, so knit, and so you have 2 stitches at a time, and you take the one that was knit first, and you just slide it over the second one. You do that all the way until the end.
And so I'm going to sneak in here too, and I will show you with the holding the yarn in my, it's basically, it looks the same, except I hold the yarn in a different finger. And oftentimes what I find is easiest for me to do is once I picked up this underneath one, I actually hold that second stitch with my finger while I'm pulling it off, so I don't pull both of them off. Once you get started though, it's easier. So we're going to let you go ahead and do some binding off. And if you need to, you can go ahead and stop the recording and finish your bind off, or rewind and watch again to see how we're doing this. And then when you're done with the bind off, you get to go ahead and you get to start up your recording again, and then we will show you how to cast on the hat. And we're going to teach you a new stitch today. I'm sounding sort of like Bob Ross.
Yeah, very soothing.
Happy little stitches.
Yeah. So at the end, I used to kind of cut it and then try to sew it in, but then what my friend showed me is that you can just cut it. I have 2 kinds of devices here. There's just these regular little scissors I can fold up, and then my granny gave me this cool little like throwing star that you can use to then cut the yarn as well. So my friend showed me that you can cut it and then just pull it up and through, which makes it a lot less bulky at the end than what I used to do.
Mm-hmm. So basically just do a slip knot at the end that doesn't slip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you have these little tail ends that you can either weave in, or if you left them out and you wanted to, you could turn them into something to help hang it up if you really wanted to. But if you'd like to weave them in.
Yeah, let's see how you weave them in.
I have this little carrying case for the needle. I take it and I fold it over the needle and slip it through the eye. And yeah, I kind of play around with it depending on what it is and what kind of stitch. Like, since this is what would be called garter stitch, where the bumps kind of go on both sides. If you're going back and forth, you'd be knitting every row. If you're going in the round, you would alternate between knitting a row and purling a row to make a garter stitch. Then I would just kind of use the bumps to kind of slide this through and try to find a way to hide it. Sometimes you have to do a little trial and error with a different stitch and making sure that it's hidden in the way that you like. And I usually try to do about like an inch or so, at least. So like that. And then snip it. And then just kind of pull from the back and tucks back in.
Nice. Thank you for watching this Dragonfly Creative webinar. If you'd like to get full access to this tutorial, along with our full library of previous and upcoming webinars, check out my club, A Place to Create, at dragonflycreative.art.